I'm at a neighborhood playground, and my younger son, he's climbing around on this play structure that's sort of like a boat type shape. I'm on a bench and facing the prow, the front of the boat. I, of course, am thinking back to Leticia's description of the shape of population aging in her country or around Europe, that there's this very wide portion at the top, what she called in episode 2 the mushroom shape. She also referred to as a cruise ship coming towards you, like in the climax of Speed 2, if anyone happens to have seen that. But the idea is that, a boat has this very narrow bottom and the top is very wide. But what I'm really thinking about is the conversation you're about to hear. It made me reconsider not just how and why we reproduce on these population levels that we're discussing, but also the factors that went into my becoming a parent and having 2 kids as opposed to 1, and why right now I'm doing podcast intros with my feet in a sandbox. This is episode 3 of Certain Futures. Demographic science began with 2 numbers, the death rate and the birth rate. And now, as we take a demographic perspective on Europe's aging population, we're told those are still the only factors that really matter. In episode 2, Alexandra did a great job of demonstrating why we should be proud of the fact that we're living longer. And when we see longevity on the population level, that's something that I think reflects our individual desires really well. But while the choice to live a longer, healthier life is nearly universal, the decision whether or not to have a child or children seems to me to be a much more individual and unique choice for everyone. So I think fertility, which is to say the number of people being born on a population level, if we're going to do what Leticia said and look for the people in the numbers, it's going to take a little more work. We're going to spend this episode in one conversation, just one interview, because I feel like demography can shed some light on the human experience of, making babies. So join me now as I make a phone call to Finland with a sociologist and demographer who is one of Europe's leading researchers and policy advisors when it comes to fertility.
I'm Anna Rotkirch. I'm a research director and research professor at the Population Research Institute, which is part of a family NGO in Finland. We have been working with fertility for a very long time, actually most of my working career. We gathered survey data and first having quite high and rising fertility in the early years of the century in Finland and the Nordics. And we were like, oh, this is really interesting. And nobody actually cared much because it was rising. And we were like, why is it rising? Why are people having kids?
It's when they start going down, people are like, well, why are we not making babies?
Exactly. Yeah, our Italian colleagues, which had been, telling their governments, you should just copy the Nordics for a long time, affordable childcare and dad's participation, and which is great for child well-being. I mean, of course, but it's not enough to support fertility anymore. Our Italian colleagues were like, can you please stop it? Like, what are you doing?
So we have these generational labels, these pop cultural cohorts, and they're usually used to basically complain about someone that's younger or older than you.
Sure.
It's okay boomer, that sort of thing. The baby boomers got sort of labeled based on their parents' fertility. And so when we look at like the marketing of cohorts, is there a way to sort of say, hey man, Gen Alpha loves making babies, or call them, Generation Baby Maker? Is it like marketing's more powerful than government policy a lot of times?
Yeah, that's a brilliant suggestion. But generations tend to be defined when we know something about how they behave. And of course, I mean, in our countries, there cannot be a new baby boom because there will always be smaller and smaller generations of reproductive age. let's say in 20 years in Finland, all women start to have 3 children, number-wise, it's not really going to reach the birth rates that we had in the 1990s. So we are heading for population decline, but how to kind of approach it in a way when it's not with collapsing fertility, but kind of somehow more moderate fertility is the challenge.
So I get nervous that people might look at these low fertility rates and decide there's a correlation between women's rights, women's bodily autonomy and equality, and weaponize this against women's rights.
Oh, I mean, that's partly happening already. Many authoritarian regimes have approached population growth and childbearing as something to be dictated from above and related to very conventional gender roles. The authoritarian attempt now to kind of, reinstate some Stalinist policies with, motherhood medals or especially banning abortion, they are not working. So Iran has that. I follow it closely because my daughter-in-law is Persian and their fertility rate is collapsing. So kind of banning reproductive rights and propagating some housewife ideal, which does not correspond to the current dual breadwinner model, will just lead to misery and illegal abortions and suffering. And it will not raise the fertility rate. And that's in a way good, because if they would succeed, then we would have a kind of difficult choice. But that's also why I see that the way forward is to support, listen to what young adults want and enable them to have it.
Right.
I think the dual breadwinner model is kind of here to stay. That's what most people want, both men and women, globally. They want to work and have an income and contribute to society in that way, but they also want to have a partner, and most want to have children. So that should be the starting point also for pro-feminist movements.
So when you say most people globally want to have children, does that mean that these lower fertility rates are us failing to provide people with what they want the outcomes of their lives to be?
So for a long time in many societies, people actually wished to have fewer children than they ended up having, and especially women. And here was the case for reproductive rights and controlling your reproduction and also being able to influence when you have a child. But now the situation has reversed. In most European countries and most high-income countries, people want more children than they actually then end up having. And that's the whole basis, I think, for any policy intervention. Also in Finland, I did a demographic report, and its title was How to Support People to Have the Children They Want. In Finnish, you can say this very elegantly in one long word, but in English you can't. But it's lapsitoiveet. Lapsitoiveet is how many children you want to have. So, okay, what prevents people from having the children? And there I would flag, I think, this major societal mismatch where we are in. Very many stories about the successful life and the successful career emphasize education, career, work experience, other experiences, living around until very late. And the expectations are that you should become, in a way, a parent only after those. And that is just at odds with reproductive biology. We asked about the ideal number of children, which again for me is the starting point. Not just do you plan to have children, but also first, do you want children? What is your ideal number? And as I said, most do want children, but we had an increase in also those who said they want no child. And then when we asked, okay, what's the reason you are then not wanting a child at all or not trying to have a child? You have these various reasons, I am not mature enough, ongoing studies, not the right partner, housing, financial concerns. And other interesting things to do in life were like in 4th to 5th place very often, and then they jumped to 1st place. Then we did a separate study. What are these interesting things? Okay, one is the kind of sense that you have really many more opportunities, global possibilities, which is nice, like the world opens up for young people. But we found it's also that they see parenthood as the end of all interesting things to do. So they were like, yeah, okay, I want to have children, but then, that's the end. Then I'm just to sit at home, nothing fun. I have to go to all their hobbies. I can't sleep. And then I'm just waiting for them to move out. So I'm exaggerating a bit, but this was the message. So in these other interesting things to do is also the idea that somehow the fun stops when you are a parent. And this is a mistake, because we do know from extensive research on parents that they have downs in life, but really many ups in life, and life continues after you have a child. And this is very interesting and would merit studies. How did this perception kind of root itself among young adults that the fun is over in a way?
Do we know about the regrets of having children versus not having them?
Oh, yeah. I mean, some do regret having children or say that they would have had fewer than they did. But those are few. Like 1%, maybe not even that. I mean, among parents then, because not everybody becomes a parent.
Right.
But the other way around, unwanted childlessness is quite large. Again, among all childless in Finland currently in their 40s, the majority would have liked to have a child.
The majority of childless Finnish 40-year-olds wish that they had or would be able to have children.
Yeah.
This gap between what people want and what they are able to achieve.
Yeah.
That is a very different way of looking at these aging populations, because a lot of times it is tied to macroeconomic features or large-scale policy, or like, how are these things going to work, and not tied to individual choice. I live in Berlin. I see a lot of families that are built in ways that are really creative. Is this idea of we find a partner, we get married, we have kids. Do we need to adapt our old-fashioned ideas of how kids get made in our cultures?
Every single human being on this planet and every single human being that was ever born had a mother,
right?
A biological mother who gave birth to this person. And this is not old-fashioned. This is how we reproduce. And yes, we see a pluralization of ways of parenting, which I think is very both interesting as a scholar and then good, because there are many ways to parent. Maybe we tend to forget that there has always been, and history is full of different constellations. But the fact is that there's a woman giving birth to a child. And it's also the fact that most children are born in partnerships. By far, it's like most sex is also had in stable partnerships. And this is not how it feels when you are in Berlin. Or maybe Berlin is the exception there. Maybe in Berlin on a population level, most sex is not had in partnerships. But like speaking about the more populations, that's the case. So I think, yes, plurality, absolutely, and find your own way. But there's nothing old-fashioned in wanting to fall in love and have a child. And what I want to say here is that what is outdated is the idea that a kind of heterosexual nuclear family is the only form. But that, of course, is an historical anomaly, because people have always had other kinds of help with child rearing. Like, you have always had others. There are very, very few instances where you have a mom and a dad and two children and nobody else helps. We all know there is childcare, there is nannies, there are grannies, the neighbor's daughter. Like, there's always been a community helping the parents out. And if there's not a community, the parents tend to be really stressed. And this is, of course, also part of what's going on today, that the households don't get enough of support. But when I talk about becoming a parent in different ways, if you see parenting as kind of bringing up a child, which can be biologically yours, but not necessarily, you always have other helpers, and those helpers are also really, really important. And I think this is also a bit lost currently.
If that's lost currently, how do we reclaim that, or how do we resupply it?
This is not easy at all. I think we need to really rethink housing policies, neighborhood policies around supporting people raising children and enabling others who want to help them to support them.
It's right now, it's like 2 a.m. I'm falling behind on my deadlines with this podcast, which means I'm editing in the middle of the night and one headphone on, one off. So if my 3-year-old wakes up and calls for me, I can run in there, which he just did. And I don't think it was a nightmare. Maybe he was cold as I just pulled the blanket over him and got to watch him go back to sleep and feel like, hey, I'm a good dad. And that'll last for a few hours until I make him breakfast and do something terrible, like put the spoon into the bowl with the cereal instead of handing it to him to do it himself. But I wanted to interrupt the conversation to say that I personally thought my decision to have a child, and especially a second one, was all about German family policy, the healthcare, the family leave, just so many. They give money to you and let you send the kid to daycare. But I think about the fact that I walk around my neighborhood and there's a playground on every single block. I just see like children happy, and maybe that had as much, if not more, of an impact than getting a couple $100 a month, which I appreciate, don't get me wrong. And I live in this building where people, when we moved in as a childless couple, said, careful. People move in here, they end up with kids. And I thought, okay, but this building has a kind of a uniquely community vibe. I don't mind the fact that I'm accepting packages all day long from my neighbors because I'm at home during the day working on podcasts. And the neighbors were part of the experience of my kids growing up. It's kind of weirdly like something out of a gangster movie flashback to when the times were good, you know? Without the mafia violence, just the charming neighbors shouting to each other from their balconies. So maybe it was that, but also the $200 a month.
People have evolved to have children during the history of humanity in very different situations. We are super flexible in many, many things regarding how to raise children, finding the help we need, timing it, so that they survive and in turn have children. And so I would rely on this resilience, but we also know that we have evolved to respond to certain cues, like when is the good time to have a child? And those cues are having a safe environment, seeing other people with kids who look okay, who look like they are still sane and they are smiling and the child is happy and they are not too stressed. And again, I think, Finland, we have really generous parental benefits. But if I'm a young adult in the capital area and I hesitate, do I want children or not? What I see is screaming kids in the supermarket. This is what every young adult you interview mention. And they are like, oh my God, they are so terrible. I never want children.
Are you saying that because people in their 20s are maybe segregated in our cities or in a lot of places from people with children, that they don't get to see the fun half of it?
Yeah, no. I think this is also really interesting that you make these rational calculations, my career and what are the trade-offs and what are the income and what would it cost? But then at least I know for myself and for many, at least women, those rational calculations can be badly done or just show a huge minus, and you are like, yeah, but I still want a child. And so where does this then feeling come from? And I think it's very much unconscious, and I think the one really key is just seeing other people, especially those you admire and respect, having children and they are fine.
Is it more realistic to provide more support and encouragement for women having children later in life than it is to try and get them to have them earlier?
So the thing is, we saw ages at first birth go up in Europe. And for instance, in Finland, it went from, 22, 23. They were really low in the 50s. They crept up to around 27, 28. And women still had around the same amounts of children, like the kind of completed fertility rate, as demographers say. The numbers of children they had in their lifetime for a generation didn't change much. They actually even increased a bit among my own generation compared to the previous. But then something happened. And currently in Europe, the births in women aged 35 plus are not really increasing on a macro level. So they increased for a long time. And as you know, if you lived in the 70s and you had your first child at 35, you were probably really stigmatized. I got pregnant easily with my third child when I was 39. And they kept referring to me as an old mother, and I was very bothered. And I agreed, it's silly. So of course we should encourage all kinds of ages. But it should also be okay to have a child when you are 22.
Right.
And my hunch is that is even more stigmatized. Well, I mean, we don't have to compare. I mean, any stigma, you should support people to live the kinds of lives they want, but also to have children when it's biologically feasible. And I don't think we will change this easily. And I'm not sure why we even kind of should adapt our bodies to society and not the other way around.
I didn't want to make the mistake of describing how younger generations might think about having children without taking the time to actually speak to at least one of them. Sam, when you grow up, do you want to have kids?
Yeah, I'm gonna have 10 already.
10?
Yeah.
10, you have 10 kids.
Yeah.
Okay. And what are you going to name them?
Sammy.
You're going to name them all Sammy? Okay. Oh, and why do you want to have 10 kids?
Because we love 10 kids. If I had 10 kids, then I would say I could go to the toy store.
Yeah. And would you take them to the toy store?
Yes.
So what's your job going to be then?
Take them to the toy store.
That's your job?
Yeah.
So you'll be a dad. Will be your job?
Yeah.
There are people I know who don't want kids and think kids are a bad idea.
Yeah. No, here I think I have a clear answer. Children are good, and children are a public good. And children are the future. I mean, it's so silly to say it, but it's actually true. The future of your culture, your community, your language, your family, humanity, whatever. So the kids born today, they are around, hopefully at the end of the century, and it's their world. Not everybody will want to or can have children, even more can't have children, even if they want to. And that's how it has always been. And everybody can also contribute to raising the younger generation, even if they are not biological parents, in many different ways. And in some segments of the kind of social media discourse, there's this, I don't like children, but I still think it's a, vocal minority.
Right.
I don't think most people think that way. If you see a baby brought into a room and how people react, just this very unconscious, usually it's just people just smile.
I noticed in social groups, there's like the Trojan horse baby, the first one, and they're at parties, and all of a sudden the baby's getting passed around, and people are like, oh, holding this feels good.
That's a fantastic term, because that's how it is. I mean, babies are, fertility is socially contagious, and we know it.
Really?
Yeah. But I didn't have this Trojan horse. You need the first. Yeah.
So how do we make a baby, or how do we make millions of babies? Is there a way to have the state lead the way?
Yeah. So all policies should obviously be, easy, attractive, timely. But this said, how I see at least my society is the message you get is you should work, you should educate yourself. And then, having a family and children is really up to you. And so we are saying that wage working is a public good. We are saying that education is a public good. And I think we should say that having children is a public good. This is how society works. And I think nobody should become a parent against their will, obviously. That's a recipe for disaster. I think we have many young adults who are unsure. When is the right time? When is a good partner? What should I do? And years go by, and we should make kind of tailored, easy access, one door, anything you want to ask about sex, babies, reproductive health, contraceptives, give that advice. Do you need a gynecologist? Do you need a psychologist? Do you need just a reference group with people who are undecided to talk to? This we can do as a society.
I think that would be a remarkable, and I think sort of the full extension of being pro-choice.
Exactly. And pro-community. I have a publication called All That She Wants Is Another Baby. I do.
That's fantastic.
From, of course, that pop song. And one colleague of mine, he was like, what the... I just listened to that song. It's not about babies at all. It's about promiscuous behavior in Stockholm. I built a whole postdoc around your article. But he hadn't heard the song. He just thought it was about wanting a baby.
I love that.
Yeah, but I mean, I meant babies, and I studied baby fever, which is one of the cues for when is the right time to have a child. So some men, but especially many women, is this very strong longing, just a strong longing to have a child. So that's baby fever.
Is baby fever a clinical term?
I mean, it's a clinical term for when babies have temperature, but it has been studied now by psychologists, and it is kind of an emotion of its own. It's not the same as longing for pets or a new kitchen, or this has been kind of proven. And it's not the same as a general wish to care. So there is something as a wish to really have a child of your own. And that's quite a prominent reason for the first child, but actually a really prominent reason to have the third child in Finland is my partner's baby fever, which basically is one of us is just going to be please have another.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's all that she wants is another baby.
All that she wants is another baby. Longing for children as a fertility incentive of growing importance. Yeah.
So there's no perfect policy. Once again, we're told the silver bullet does not exist, but demography reaffirms that we should be helping each other as a community, that the forms that our families can take are broad and inclusive and can reflect what people want today. Rich lives where they work and contribute and where they have families and find love. And I think there's an opportunity for us to wonderfully, broadly, across demographics, across political divides, conclude that when we see this discrepancy between the number of children people want to have and the number of children that they are having, that we need to support people better and find ways to make them feel comfortable having children, cue them into doing it, making it not a burden financially for them. We're all friends on the playground, and the big boat can be something we climb on and swing from, and not something that's charging at us full speed. This episode was produced in cooperation with the EU-funded research project FutureRes towards a resilient future of Europe. Thank you so much to the team over at FutureRes for their support. And a huge, huge thank you to Anna for this wonderful conversation. You can find links to her work and research in the show notes, along with more information from FutureRes and Population Europe. I'm also grateful for everyone who's been listening along and the wonderful feedback we've gotten on certain futures. For Radio Spakoff, this is Daniel Stern. Thanks for listening.